7, and so Gary's got some,
Well, then
and I'm not saying he's got some issues there, and he's just kind of showing something new. And so I'm trying to get him out and about, you know?
I the next one is right. Yeah, her son is right, so he's nice.
I think it's important to push it.
Rick gave a speech in like 2 minutes at the promotion committee. I was like, we gotta go.
And he's just doing the Alpine thing on Sundays, it's always really good. There's,
Little windy road.
it's just hard up there. And he's gonna pick me up from this meeting, and we're gonna go to the Alpine at the brewery if you wanna join us, but. The music is a little bit tough right now, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Empire thing,
Like that.
it's just.
Yeah,
it's
nice.
and
You know,
He does it all the time.
When we went to the place in Lawson yesterday, they do a Tuesday night thing. But it's all up the stairs, and it was just Christine and Pope, I don't know, Pope, and a guy I didn't know, and then Gary. And it was, but it's a hard climb to get up there, is my issue. I mean, it's a lot of steps. Lawson, at the Adventure Park in Lawson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they do that on Tuesday evenings from like 5 to 7 or something like that. And it was pleasant, but it's a hard climb to get up there, in my opinion.
Okay.
But it's just real hard right now to get that to go on.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't mind. Doing it at some point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the brewery in Empire is closed for a couple of weeks. And they're doing a coffee shop up there this week, so I don't know, maybe it'll be quieter, I don't know.
Because this got to take.
Well, you know, Randy's
Yeah.
coming around, things are getting better for him, so I don't know if that will work or not, but he's starting to. They don't ever use that back room at all.
No. I know.
So I don't know
I'm
what.
not sure if this is the same one you had, that mine may be updated.
oh, okay.
Or what.
I'll look for it real quick.
What's
That looks the same.
I'll take care of you.
Yeah,
I'll wait on you.
that looks the
You
same.
know, I'm good at that.
Because I made my little markings. And
Okay.
this one.
Didn't they, I think
Is
it
this
may
the
be-
thing about
it may be-
Geisness?
No,
Okay. I just saw something in the post office. Okay,
these are just discussion items.
I think I've got it.
Yeah, it may be the same, but I'm just
Yeah,
making
no,
sure.
absolutely.
Jerry Dahl sent this to me today.
I have no problem with that, Rick.
And I don't know if he changed any of the verbiage, but this was sent to me today. But it was memos. I do. So maybe, I mean, you're the chairman, but it's just a suggestion, maybe we read it out loud to make sure we catch. Everyone's hearing the same thing.
Okay.
I know it almost sounds grade schoolish, but it is a memo designed to be discussed. And
What are
so,
we reading out of the Crested Butte thing?
well, there's two different memos. It's just summarizing. of
I
what-
just didn't know what you were reading out loud.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's what I say. I was just gonna make sure Rick didn't realize we hadn't called, yet, so you guys were just like
yeah, I didn't know.
2 minutes late.
Yeah, but
Right,
Ed
yeah.
and I were talking music, so you know.
Yeah. All right, it's time 6:05, Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. Call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Okay. Kathy Hunt. Here. And Wilkins.
Here,
Ed Hoover.
Here.
Denise Newton.
Here.
And Chairman Kaczynski.
Here.
You want approval of the agenda?
Yeah, both can approve the agenda.
Motion. Oh, that's fine.
Go ahead.
But who cares? Either one, pick your pick.
Okay, Natalie Zulu, I will.
Yeah.
And Denise second.
Sure.
Now, so can we discuss these things when we get to the appropriate places? In other words, you've got 2 items on the agenda and these relate to them.
Yes,
So rather than just starting out and diving into the memorandums.
yeah, which is land use code updates.
Mhm. So I would have a first question. On the Gateway Commercial District, it says potential code amendment to encourage commercial mixed use.
Well, it
I
doesn't,
mean, either it's a code or it's a.
no, actually, I read it today, section 1716-047, and kind of feel like that girl at the PRC. Who is it that sits here all the time? Her.
Cindy,
I feel like Cindy right now. Hi, I'm Cindy. No, but when I read that, it doesn't have a mixed use coding there.
Right.
So what we have to do basically is figure out, are we gonna put one in, number one?
Yeah.
Number two is it gonna be just, what's the percentage, the first floor, is the top floors? We need to figure all that out, right? That's what I'm kind of getting out of this.
I think that's true, and I think also, in fairness, it has been mixed use.
Yeah, well.
Which is not necessarily a legal mixed use. but
Right.
has been.
So it's open to discussion, I guess, right?
Can I give a little bit of feedback
Sure.
as you guys are discussing of why this is important? So I've had multiple developers approach me, and it seems that every one of them have a residential component. And some of them are wanting to do 100% residential, some are wanting to do mixed use. Currently, we don't allow either, unless it's a special use, but even special use would say it has to be primarily commercial, and in primary means dominant. So it cannot be 50-50. So even in that model, it would have to be some small little apartment that's connected to someone's commercial building. It has to be a very subordinate use. So we, as a town, when I look at these applications, or they're not applications yet, they're all preliminary applications when they come to me. So it's like, I'm sorry, we don't allow that. The only alternative you have is to do a rezoning, which you're going to hear about a rezoning coming up because I've tried to talk them out of it and I can't. They're persistent on trying to bring it to a rezoning. So I'm not in favor of this one that's coming to you guys pretty soon. It's going to go to DRC first and then you're going to hear it. And so I'm not going to disclose it unless you want to talk individually, and I can disclose why I feel the way I do.
well, that makes sense, but also too with rezoning. We've talked about that before. It's tough to do because of the whole reasoning of why it was put in place to begin with.
Right.
So then it's more an argument of why we should rezone it.
Yeah, it is a commercial, gateway commercial. It is our commercial area.
Yeah.
And it's, once you lose it, you don't get it back.
Right.
And so we preserve that. So, well, what I'm seeing is, I don't want to give it up. Second is, but I don't want our code to hinder us from what our need is. And we are under critical status for housing right now. All types of housing. I would prefer affordable housing, but we need all types of housing. Probably the greatest need is the affordable component. And that's why you're going to look at another one, because we're trying to figure out, if we don't get a hold of this now, this may get away from us. And so we're trying to figure out this whole complexity too.
Well, then let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If they go to DRC now under the existing code, can they end up with all housing?
No,
Okay.
no. The code, the gateway commercial prohibits 100% residential development, single family and multi-family.
That's correct.
You cannot do it. You can do a special use, but it would have to be showing that there is a commercial component under special use.
It really sounds like a commercial space down with all the apartments at the bottom.
Yeah, but even then, it's kind of a little, it's very restrictive, because it says even then your primary use cannot be commercial, residential.
Just be
So for
clear.
example, let's take a 3-story building. If your bottom ends up being your commercial, your top 2 would be residential. That's 3/4
Yeah.
of your whole thing,
Right.
1/4 commercial. So that would be rejected. So
It'd have to
even
be
if,
the opposite.
correct, so
Right.
but even if it was 50-50, it would still be rejected.
Well, exactly, yeah, I meant 2 to 1 though.
Yeah.
instead of-
And
So-
you have height down there?
35 feet.
Okay.
So you can do 3-story, up to 3 stories, right?
It's gonna be a flat roof.
Yeah.
I mean, if there are a number of.
So the height does restrict it right now. Yeah, our height, and so I'm just building the backstory of why we're even talking about it. So, in order to preserve our code and accomplish the need, that's why it's been brought to you. Because we've already brought this to the Board of Selectmen of saying, do you want us to look at this? Because the issue we're getting bombarded right now. And either we don't do anything, we say no, but they've tasked us to go back and look at this. Because Martin Landers, Jerry, and I have all been talking about this. We're at the point where we're in discussion mode. We want to present it to you, because if we can come to conclusions on discussion, then we will create an ordinance. And then we'll bring that ordinance through the public hearing through you, first reading, second reading. And if you guys then like it, then it'll go back to the Board of Selectmen. But we're still kind of early on in the discussions. So he gives you some thoughts of how we can look at it. To me, the bare minimum that I want to see is at least some mixed use, 50-50. And so,
No, you can do that because you can extend the ground floor a little further out.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah.
I mean, there are a number of ways.
so it's as long as we can keep our commercial on ground level, because it doesn't make sense to put your commercial on the above top,
Oh, definitely.
because you want your commercial to come in and out.
Well, all the.
As an example, would a gym or a workout space, would you consider that to be commercial?
Yeah,
So that could go on the second floor,
yeah, yeah.
first and second, whatever, okay.
Yes,
Well, I mean, you could divide it up. But when you do that, then you have,
Georgetown.
commercial stairs and stuff, because it's
Sure.
getting to the second floor, but it doesn't make sense, but the design itself, you're an architect, so you kind of are a designer, but you could easily design it, so. Sorry, so that the commercial is much bigger than
Yes.
residence. So then that kind of would salvage these, but then you need to get somebody that's gonna build it, that will do that. Everybody that's built stuff always says affordable housing.
And it never
And
happens.
then all those leases are 2,000 or 3,000 a month.
So I guess the other thing too is when we're talking about a change, I'm okay with keeping it as a special use. But opening up the definition so it would allow mixed use, like a 50-50 mixed use. Or taking out the language where we're not defining saying primary, secondary, we just define ground floor has to be commercial.
Commercial.
Above floors can be residential, and it would be a height restriction of how high you can go. So we wouldn't have to say, oh, you can only do 2 stories. It's just height would restrict the above floors. So it gives them an option to then bring. It still would not allow what the Georgetown Lodge, you're going to hear this soon. The Georgetown Lodge wants to be converted into long-term apartments. At
Yeah.
the
it's
current
ridiculous.
footprint,
Georgetown.
225
Or Super
square
8,
feet.
whatever it is behind the gas.
Yeah. So it's,
Or even the code, if we change it, still would not allow that to happen.
right,
So we're still trying to preserve. Now, a hotel would be allowed, but a hotel has a lot more regulations where you have people daily inspecting rooms. But long-term stay, you don't know who's in there.
That's true.
So
That's the whole idea of why stuff is divided up the way that it is.
yes, yeah. So I just want to bring that in, and then we can go through the specifics of Jerry's looked at other towns and how they have allowed a gateway commercial. I've heard it called commercial core as another where you allow upstairs to be different than the downstairs. So, but,
Well, that's tough too, because I think no matter how you look at it, you can't have the apartment rooms downstairs, because I think that takes away your door. Does that make sense?
yeah.
yeah,
Even if your commercial was bigger, I think that's a definite no. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no.
I don't know if this is in order or not, but my issue with this whole thing is when they did Bighorn Crossing, the commercial was supposed to go in first. There was going to be a strip there on the highway that was commercial. That's never been done. That was the big thing that allowed us to do this, was we were putting commercial in to work with our tax base. We need something to guarantee that it's not just residential.
I agree. And that's why I'm saying, that's why I'm here trying to fight that we don't get rid of our commercial.
right.
And just rezone it to
But
something.
there has to be something to say, yeah, we're letting you put residential here, but this has to be commercial. There's got to be some place
Yeah.
for that. That's my issue.
Which is how it gets built into it too. I mean, like Bighorn, it's separate, which is odd, right? I mean, it's not like it's built into a commercial building, even,
No, I agree. There, I don't really know all of what happened, but things
Went wrong.
went around.
That was affordable housing too at some
No,
point.
it's not.
At some point it was.
People say, but it's never.
No, it's not.
They get really so
It's on Clifford's land. Those aren't affordable either.
No.
So, and that's an issue I have is you have to guarantee it's
So
affordable.
here's the thing with.
But we're not unaffordable right now, are we? We're not commercial.
Yeah.
Next week, next month.
So,
Everything you said.
so I will then
Yeah.
let, you know, I've said what I wanted to, and then allow you to go through the bullets to see if these are things that you want to consider, or do you want to restrict it to, you know, 2 points or whatever it is, and, but give you a chance to discuss it through.
That sounds great.
So do you want to read out the poll?
If you want to read through this,
Yeah, we
I
want
think
to.
we should, I can better listen, understand if I.
Okay.
know what's-
I'll just read through the whole thing.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Town staff regularly receives requests, I mean, this is what I just said to you.
Yeah,
For development or redevelopment of properties in the Gateway Commercial District, proposing significant mixed uses in commercial and residential configurations. Staff has met with the Board of Selectmen on recommended changes to aspects of that district and asked the commission to review and give its recommendation on these suggestions. The Board of Selectmen had no reservations. They were all in favor of this, and especially wanting you guys to tasked to do something about it. Gateway Commercial District is intended to facilitate business and commercial uses primarily oriented towards vehicular traffic and the travel in public. Code 171647A. That district permits a range of commercial uses by right. Special uses allowed in this district include motels, hotels, lodging units, and resorts, and manager caretaker dwelling units in the same principal building. This is consistent with the intent of the district as primarily commercial. Among the special uses allowed in the Gateway Commercial District is number 7. This is the whole point of why we're looking at this.
Yeah.
If somebody brings to a special use permit for residential use, they're going to go to this section. Resident or dwelling units in a residence, in a mixed use dwelling or multifamily dwelling unit in a separate building constructed as part of a unified project, including other structures containing commercial uses, which are the primary use of the property taken as a whole. Commercial primary use taken as a whole. That's the key words. In fact, I even had Jerry Dahl write a memo to me, making sure that that's what that was. In looking at legal terms and definitions, primary means majority, easily taken. Simple reading is the best reading. This section, while permitting some dwelling units in a mixed-use configuration, continues to emphasize that the use of the property taken as a whole must be commercial. Town staff has reasonably interpreted this language to not permit a mixed-use development providing for commercial uses on the ground floor and exclusively residential uses on the second floor, because the commercial use would still not be primary use of the property taken as a whole. This has precluded a common form of mixed-use development, which does allow residential uses on the second floor above commercial offices, for example.
But although, again, you're using second floor and first floor, you may want to revise that because it could be that the first floor is bigger and therefore is the commercial space.
Yeah, but as long as we can take out the word like primary, then that's the kind of thing that messes up, or majority, you know, just we can clarify the code. The board is considering a potential code amendment of section 171647C7 to address this issue. Elements of such an amendment would include, okay, these are the things that we should talk about now. So we're suggesting these are ways that we can redefine the language. Specifically, so for example, in this, we could say specifically allowing the entirety of the second floor of a commercial building to be devoted to residential uses, so long as the entire first floor was commercial. That gives you a mixed use, and it doesn't specify how big that area is. It just says first floor, second floor. Anybody have questions on that? No? Okay. The second bullet, also allowing commercial uses on the second floor of such development. This would be what you were describing. If they wanted to have the option to put a gym or something that would not, I mean, it's not going to have a constant traffic, but it would be some commercial above. It would also allow that, you know, so that you're not you're not restricted, or an office building, so it could be
Sure.
shared spaces and those kind of things. Number three, consideration of the minimum composition of commercial uses on the first floor. Example, at least a percentage of retail such that the remaining portion could be residential. So we could clarify and say, well, 75% of the lower first floor has to be commercial. And they, so then it gives them an option if they wanted more residential units in the whole building, they would get that. Jerry has seen that in their in other codes where they specify a percentage of the commercial. Another one is consideration of a horizontal mixed use development. Example, containing separate individual structures comprised of separate residential and commercial uses as long as the total floor area of the project is at least a percentage of commercial. So for example, you may have two buildings. Instead of having mixed use in each building, you do buildings separately. This is the residential building, this is the commercial building. And then, maybe I'm saying, but this size building is 2,000 square feet where this one is 3,000. So you still have a majority larger size of commercial because it's the front versus the.
I would say that's a risky, that's
That's the whole problem we have right now with Big Barn. I think with the way that it's set up, best case is you get to do some housing up above on apartments, but when you separate the buildings.
maybe you have an entry area to the second floor that's
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah, I just don't even find it apart because
Yeah.
once you break that up, then it looks broken up. Then it looks like, oh, wow, I have some residential here and I have some commercial here, which is kind of already what happened.
Yeah, and this way too, if you think of buildings, it's your bottom level that's gonna have your commercial. So if you eliminate the bottom on this, now you're restricting your commercial to a very small component of it.
Yes.
So you have commercial, residential, commercial, how much commercial is gonna be on the second floor? I mean, not many business, like if you had a choice to put your business somewhere, you're gonna try to get on the bottom.
It's gonna be the first floor.
Yeah,
And that's your best chance to sell too.
but I mean, that's a good, I agree with you guys. I think that is very restrictive and it's not helping our need. And then the next bullet, allowing other alternative kinds of mixed commercial residential development, including one or more retail businesses, as long as the look and feel of the development appears succinctly commercial or sufficiently commercial. I'm trying to think of an example of how that would work. Can anyone think of something?
Well, I mean, mostly if you look at the front of the building from the roadway, does it look like there's apartments up there or not? I mean, it really, if you go down 6th Street, with some of the places that are up there, a lot of them, you don't realize there's apartments up there. I mean, that's kind of the look, on the backside, it's a little bit different.
Right.
Okay, I thought of something. When I was in Brush, in the commercial core that this would apply to, there were two types of residential uses that were allowed. One was 2-story. So your bottom would be commercial, your top would be like a loft living.
Yeah.
So that's normal, which we're familiar with. The second would be a 1-story. Your front part is commercial and a portion of the rear could be residential.
Right.
So it's basically
As
an
long as it's
apartment
connected.
connected, but it would have to be in the rear side. So this is what it's saying, it's like if we alternate allowing that, if it's a 1-story building, then we would say the rear side of that potentially could be residential, but it would have to be a small component of that. And I think even in Brush, it was like, could not exceed 30%.
Okay.
So it's basically supposed to be apartment, small apartment.
The one thing I would add in there that's not there is that there should be the main facade of the building, or at least the commercial area, should face the street,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that we don't end up with little, what do you call them, a little shopette kind of thing
yeah.
that goes on.
Town Square. I mean, is that what you're referring to as how the commercial inside?
Yeah, but I was thinking more of one that's where it's larger and you drive in and you still park in front of all of that.
Okay.
Right, you have the buildings and then the parking in front and then a street. So this way you see it.
Yeah, yeah. And the last one is requiring construction of the retail element of a mixed-use development to be completed prior to the simultaneously with the residential elements.
Which is not the problem if it has to be connected, because it would have to be done at the same time.
I know.
And that all goes through, so that, but if you separate it, then you go back to the same issue of which they choose to do first, and then you have to write that accordingly.
So in my mind, because this happened in Brush too, this situation, but that was under a condition of approval.
Mhm.
You know, we were doing we were rehabbing an old schoolhouse to be or to be mixed use. And one of their requests was, we have to have a portion of this open so that we allow certain ways that it was conditioned, you can only have this part open, but it had to have all the safety measures put in so that residents would not be in construction. So, but I think that we can get around that by doing conditions of approval. So it doesn't necessarily have to be spelled out in code, but it can be a condition.
That's good. I would raise the issue of this in particular going first to DRC and second to zoning, since that seems to be the primary, or not zoning, planning commission, because that seems to be the primary issue. I'm not trying to usurp them, but you know, if they're going to DRC and they have to put together a whole sketch of everything, they're spending a lot of money up front.
Yeah, and that's normal. That's in our code now. They would have to go to DRC first.
Right, we talked about that before. It seems like everything is just naturally going to go to DRC
Yeah.
first.
It just seems in this case that.
It would have to, but our code would say right now it has to go to DRC first.
And then I can't fulfill the requirements of the DRC application unless they do all the drawings. And if they do all the drawings and we change the zoning, you know, they're gonna
Yeah. Well, I think that's what makes it a little complicated, because if we change this amendment, now this becomes a special use
be.
for them to do mixed use. And they would bring a proposal, because what would happen is they would bring it to me first, I'd review it as staff review, preliminary. We would make sure they understood you've got to go through DRC. We always recommend when it's developments like this, go with a conceptual plan first, so that you get their thoughts before it's formal, and then it's costing you money with architects and everything and changes. Go to see that, and then once they can do a conditional approval if it fits the zoning, because at that point I would have done a small zoning staff report to make sure that they can even be there, because I think what's happened in this is a good example, because for the Roost, this one that's at the Georgetown Lodge, they've already gone to them and they basically said, you need to come here because it's a zoning issue. So he still has to go there and submit his plan, but it's conditional. So they made a decision to not even review it until you guys do it. So
Which is probably smart.
yeah, because they're going to spend a lot of time on their design elements, and it could be a waste of time for them if it gets knocked down here. So they must go there, but they can punt it here, and then it will go back to them. Because if your zoning's worked out, then they're not worried about that anymore. It's just design.
Right.
So I think that our system will work. It's a good system right now. It works.
I'm honestly like you, not wanting them to have to go through any more
Yeah.
chaos than they would, than necessary.
So out of these points, which ones do you guys feel are most necessary?
I think you're pretty much right on. When you come up to the percentages that we could fill in, I'd be inclined to go something like at least 60% retail or 75 or something of that order, rather than just making it 50-50.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
I agree. I came up with 60.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say too, that the key part is it's based on a percentage. What does that leave them for size? Because you don't, in a perfect world, you could push it to the point where it's small enough. And it also makes sense for them to build it affordable. But I know the other process that I know we're gonna do that next time. But also too, I know when Kent was here, the town has to get involved to really truly make it affordable. Otherwise, it's just somebody's word saying what they think is affordable. But covering that percentage to make it worthy of that would be the key. So I mean, before we do percentages, I guess it depends on You know, because I don't understand on commercial stuff, what size they're buying, how big it is. To know what makes sense for what the percentage even is.
Yeah, I don't either.
Does that make
Okay,
sense?
so can we just go by bullets first, of which we're okay with, which we're not okay with? So like the first one, second floor to be entirely, sorry. Allowing the entirety of the second floor of the commercial building to be devoted okay, so this one's basically saying commercial bottom, residential second floor. We're good with that?
Yes.
Okay.
At least I am.
100%.
Okay,
Yeah,
we
we
all
just building apartments behind, but personally, well. Yeah, looking at it, I'd say top is residential, bottom is commercial, and then do the percentages off of that.
Okay,
Okay.
so are we also okay if they want to do some commercial on the second floor?
I think we could do both commercial if they want, that's not
Yes,
the issue.
see, that's a right by use right now.
right,
Yeah,
So that's to me not even a question because they can do that. But if they wanted to have a small percentage of the second floor mixed in the bottom commercial, we're still saying that's okay. Okay. And I would say, yeah, because we don't want to give up our commercial. So any more commercials is a benefit to me.
Benefit.
Yeah.
that's true.
The third one, consideration of a minimum composition of commercial uses on the first floor, at least a percentage of retail such as remaining portion could be residential. Are we saying we want to open up the ground floor to a percentage?
but how do you word that though?
Well,
If you do-
yeah, I'm just thinking that the entry to an upstairs unit or set of units might be, so if you wanted to say something like, I don't know, 25% could be residential if it's related to the upper space.
Yeah, this is just talking about the context of first floor though. If it's just a single floor building,
Well, in the context of that, how do you, because then you're kind of going back to the other, if you say the first floor has to be commercial, then how can you add that in to be residential?
I know, that's what it's
You
saying.
can't, I mean,
It's one, so that-
Wanted to close the stairway to the second floor, for example. That would not be commercial, that would be residential. to get up to those
you
units.
have to have access to it.
Yeah,
And I guess it's a matter if it's on the inside or on the back and the outside, because you don't want it on the front. But how descriptive do you get to that where people don't, you know, people will. They're going, where you said I could have some stuff on the first floor, but the access is through the front of the building. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole idea is to get so you don't have stuff that looks on, right?
right,
That's a real question. So it makes it tough without having a bunch of more, line items and going, well, you can do this, but you can't do this, 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 and this. Versus you just can't do it. I don't know. That's more up to you guys. Because if it is commercial, then technically your residential should just be upstairs outside of having access. But then should it just be from the rear and then you're kind of done with that?
No,
Okay, so if we do the rear as the residential and the commercial through the front door, you still need to have accessibility
Which
somehow.
would be from the back, because you don't want to lose your commercial parking space.
Somebody can walk around the back and get in.
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
like
I
to keep,
wish you want to limit it so that if it's set up, because I think about the big area that's there now. If you took out Bighorn and you had a whole strip, of commercial, then obviously the people would park in the back
Right,
for residential and park in the front for
Mhm.
commercial. If you limit that, now you've got a bunch of people run a business, see all the different things that come into play. It's like, oh, well, I've got a commercial space. Now I've got 2 spots that I lost, but they had a buddy hang out and I know no place for people to park. So they get to the residential spot. I'm just throwing it out there how we want to word that so that, how do you keep that from happening? Because developers are gonna do
code
whatever they want.
officer, no, just kidding.
Yeah, but
so do we, I guess I just want to make sure, like. On a 1-story building, do we want it to be mixed use?
probably not.
Okay,
No,
okay, so I'm gonna cut this one out then.
yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah,
I feel like that. It makes it a very strange space
Mhm.
for your commercial and have residential in the same unit
yeah,
building. And let me, if it's 2-story, I can understand it.
100%. Because you're,
Because it messes up the facade in the front
right,
of, okay, you got 3 units, say it's a 4-unit complex, it's 3 units commercial, 1 unit. And yet the unit, we don't want it to be accessed in the front, so it'd be kind of funky it just would look weird. The next one would be separate buildings. Are we open to that?
No,
No.
That's a definitely.
Okay, this helps, because I don't want to have to go through details if we don't have to. Allowing other alternative kinds of mixed commercial use, including one or more, I think we just said we didn't like that either.
Mhm.
Right? Because it's like, that's the same thing as this number 2, or actually the number 3 bullet point. It just worded different. The last one is requiring construction of a retail element of a mixed use development to be completed prior. And I would say that should be a condition, not as a code.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree.
Okay. So we're saying commercial ground,
Mhm,
residential second floor,
mhm.
we're allowing that. That could be a mixed use. Or if they want to have more commercial above on the second floor with some residential. Okay. I like it.
Good.
Okay,
I like it. I think that really opens up the door for opportunities that we can look at.
And then it's just deciding on what percentage is, but as long as it's not a 50-50, then that offsets how the building will look.
Yeah.
But then that's the RT question anyway, in the design of the building regardless.
Yeah.
Ed has something here
Yes.
too.
Sorry, Ed.
Yeah. The one thing that I don't agree with is residential on the top floor and nothing for commercial upstairs.
We're talking about the ability to have have commercial upstairs also.
Well, you have to have the whole property on it.
No, okay.
Well, but it's whole building, which commercial first and second. But they have this,
Sort of have it mixed. I see, so you're saying commercial bottom and they have part commercial upstairs with part
He doesn't
residential.
want
You
that.
don't.
He doesn't want the
He
residential.
doesn't, he wants it either bottom
He just-
floor,
He wants all
Residential.
residential and commercial.
yeah.
It can't be all residential, that's.
well, that's not.
Second floor.
Second floor would be residential, third floor would be residential, and then your bottom floor would be commercial, correct? Yeah,
And you don't want to allow commercial on the second floor.
Right.
No,
you want to,
He doesn't want mixed use on the second floor.
I hear
he
that.
doesn't want mixed use on the second floor. The first floor could be commercial, the rest have to be. residential.
So if I design a building, if I want it to be all commercial or you're fine with that, but if I choose to do residential on the second, you just don't want that mixed with commercial.
no.
On the
Right.
second
I wouldn't
floor.
do it right at all.
Which I doubt people would.
You could imagine someone coming along and saying, I mean, just. Because people will come up with similar ideas.
Right. That's
You know, what if people want to just say buy a store that was a 2-story store, maybe a loft in the back and a double height in the front.
Or they take part of the second floor.
Right.
So you can walk upstairs and have your upstairs clearance, and you have your downstairs more expensive stuff. There you go.
Well, no.
Then you want to say that building would have to be done that way without any commercial upstairs, I mean, without any residential upstairs?
Yeah,
Well, I don't know. I think that it depends on. It's an option. It gives a developer an option to have. So when they're looking at things, they're looking at the bottom line. Like, if I do this, what can my renters are gonna be here? And if I can sell the top as a condo, that gives me money to put back in the business. So that you have to think of as a developer, like how to do this.
As a business owner, what fits, but that's also our draw, what draws those developers to the town.
Yeah.
The idea that they can still make, I mean, they're in it to make money. But then also too, that takes out the idea that they've ever do it for affordable.
So like if you take like the outside building, it can be designed that you wouldn't be able to tell
Right,
that one's commercial and one's residential. Even though one building could have your, nice garments downstairs and your clearance upstairs, in the loft part. And that would be a great option for a business to have two stores and put commercial
I
retail.
mean, it happens all over. the
Oh,
place.
yes. But in another building, he may say, no,
Right.
it's worth more in the income of a consistent renter for me to have that option.
and that's an individual.
So you're giving him the option to go either way when you say mixed use.
Yes. So it all depends on the business model. Some businesses are like, oh, I can make a whole lot more than 2,000 a month in my retail. But others are like, no, I like having the 2,000 a month that I can get out of that residential component.
Which is because the people that own, I can't think of the outdoor store in Silverthorne.
Which one? There's several. And
Yeah, they just connect to Christie's, put the place there.
Christie's did hers. She's got clearance upstairs
Yeah,
and she's got regular stuff and also the outdoor, Mountain Outdoor. They as well have the same thing. And they had to go in front of me,
Yeah.
our planning commission to do that because I was up there at Silverthorne on the planning commission. We had to do the same thing there because she wanted to do the same.
well, Wilderness Sports next door.
And Wilderness,
So
That's right.
he's going back to written it as residential because he gets more money.
It does.
But then I don't know what they're doing, but he only owns the place upstairs. But it makes sense if you give people the opportunity. Because
So
that,
draw more people.
yeah, at the end of the day, what we need more people here and we need more businesses here. What kind of fits that, and what keeps them.
So I think that's why we're bringing this to you is because if we can get a development that will not let go of the commercial part, but then build a residential component, that's a win for us. We need housing.
And then we have to make it affordable and that's. the
Or
next one.
one of those apartments could be there for, a retail person, who's a manager that's gonna be there. He has a place to live there.
Well, a lot of people come in, the barbecue place, I think they bring in a house here.
Yeah.
From Baylor, so.
Yeah.
It just gives people opportunity to succeed.
Tyler just bought one.
So we're not going with the
Yes, he
percentage.
just bought one on Road Street. You know anything about-
Yeah,
He's talking about getting one.
yeah, your first floor has to be commercial. Your second floor
And his-
could be there.
talking
And
about-
who's saying that it's-
No, he's saying he doesn't want commercial and residential on the same floor.
Right, so that would be the second floor.
Right.
It's not mixed use.
But
They would stay as a block out, right?
Check and see who this is.
There's the barbecue people from, they,
Yeah.
they're from. London.
One of the things I think about was,
I haven't talked.
Okay, wait a minute.
Guys, let's listen to Ed.
Go ahead.
he had the ability to run part of the second floor as commercial. Now you're online next door with residential. Can you imagine what it's like to have kids, whatever, there in right next to you in a commercial? And if you happen to be a, what do you call it? People are,
Like coming and going all the time?
yeah, and
like a bar or something, but
well, not to, well, probably not a bar, definitely not. But you had people in there exercising, all kinds,
Mhm.
and the noise and the work, with people doing that is not the same thing as a person and geez,
Yeah, you don't wanna live next to a commercial place.
not a bit.
I wouldn't either. I mean.
No, neither would I, but that would be a choice of the person
Yeah.
who's coming into the building.
Yeah.
correct.
That's a choice that they make. That whether they want to listen to whatever's, because there's not going to be a way for them to probably get into that building or into that commercial area. It'll probably be blocked off. And then they would have their area.
What do you mean?
But it's a choice up to the person to decide whether they want to take that spot on the second floor or the corner spot on the third floor.
Well, if it's established, like, what if the commercial place wasn't there, you moved in the residential, and then all of a sudden here comes a lot of commercial use, you're like, what the?
Well,
Exactly.
but also true, it's a tough one, but the only way to look at it is there's tons of residential places above commercial places. We live at one and, it's both ways, you're just naturally gonna have noise from both. That's. If it comes on affordable housing, it's a family that actually live in a place, then they deal with the sound. If it's on the highest end of their spectrum, if it's what the going rate is, sometimes that's all people can afford, it's what you do. We did it for 2.5 years. And it wouldn't have mattered if it was commercial next to us or not. it's, you could have a family next to you with 5 kids and it's gonna be just as loud as a commercial, or maybe louder because commercial is only gonna run, on certain times of the day.
But what it's talking about is a constant coming and going of somebody into a business.
That's right.
When you're in a residential area, there should be some limits on that, where I don't have to know that these people are coming and going constantly next door because they've got a business and I'm trying to live here, you know?
But
So I think the other question then comes down to is looking at the use, the commercial use. And seeing is that appropriate for residential?
right,
So a bar, something, entertainment.
A gym, because they can do that 24.
Yeah, 24 hours a day would not be appropriate inside of residential.
So you again,
your stuff, is there stuff in place for that? Because I know nothing stays open, but I don't know if they can or can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look to see what the right value is.
Well, because you're right, if you have residential, then it's more a sound issue and a timing issue. I mean, I live in a house, but I've got mothers right across the creek, which,
Yeah.
when inside part of the.
So we're talking about a quality of life where you're moving these people in to a rental unit where they have to, right next door, have to deal with the residential. I agree with what it's saying.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about on the same level, correct, or separate?
No, he's talking about having commercial and residential on the same level. I don't think it's got to do that.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, if I did a building, and typically, so it's other building practices that come into place. Typically, a builder's not gonna do that because of,
We're not
Okay.
talking about what typically a builder will do. We want to talk about what we will allow them to do.
well, but when you say that, though, you have to understand all the dynamics of it, right? So at the very least, if I'm building a commercial building, you're by size and such, sprinkler systems and all that. To put a residential in there and then still have to make sure that it's fireproof and separate layers, it limits what people would probably do anyway. So like you say cost, but then to throw a portable in there too for the cost of just the building itself. More than likely, a smart business person is going to do all commercial, or they want to do all residential because of that. To put commercial next to it, I mean,
It doesn't make sense to put commercial next to it on the same floor, to me.
well, and not to me either, but then again, I'm not a builder that does commercial stuff. So but I don't know, how do you?
Yeah, I don't have any examples of that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I'm just thinking where I came from.
People don't do it.
No, I don't see it.
But cost wise, and that's what I was saying, from a developer standpoint, the cost of trying to separate the two is insanely costly, and you can't just go back and do a commercial and go, oh, we want to make it residential and then turn it back to commercial without it being costly.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about building it so that this little section on this floor is residential.
I'm talking,
And this little section is, and you're not changing it back and forth.
well, but they wouldn't do that. You're gonna put your commercial.
But Ed's point was, we don't want to allow that, is what his
Oh, I
point.
mean, yeah.
That's all he was saying.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting right now is our first bullet point, we didn't have any trouble with,
right,
which was commercial on the bottom, residential on top, two different.
Right.
The second bullet point says to allow some commercial on the top with residential. I can scratch that out.
Yeah.
yes,
And maybe in the future, we can revise the code to accomplish that. But at this point, this is the only thing that you guys want.
yeah.
Yeah. I would scratch it out.
Okay.
So we're gonna have commercial on the bottom,
And you can have commercial up, but it can't be mixed on that floor.
Those makes them the same.
honestly.
At this point, it can be commercial bottom, commercial top.
But we don't want mixed
Some
on,
residential, but they're not,
Which is the same thing as I was saying.
not mixed on.
not mixed on the same.
Okay, I'm gonna scratch on this one then. So
That's the same thing we're saying.
the first option.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, done.
Are
Good,
you?
good comments.
It's done.
Good comments.
So it's just the reverse. We didn't want residential on the first floor, period, our mix. So it's kind of the same thing. Make a choice.
Well, this is still a huge upgrade to what we had. It
Oh,
is.
yeah.
So, okay, you want to go to the next one?
Do we have to? No. I want to go back to the party.
Let me just to clarify, since Jen said that, we're height restricted.
35 feet.
So that means it could be a 3-story.
Right.
So I guess what I want to make sure we're saying is the second and third floor is the residential component. We're not
Correct.
going commercial, residential. We're saying the bottom has to be commercial, the above floors can be residential.
Or commercial.
But you could do the second floor commercial and the third floor residential. I mean,
Oh,
but you don't want to do residential in the middle and commercial on the top. I'm not sure where you're going with that, but that's my take on what you're saying.
It's true though, like, it's like, when you look at like the international codes and stuff. For somebody to do 2 commercial spaces and then residential and then deal with steps, access, fire hazards and stuff. Typically, it becomes too much of a liability for somebody to do that. It's just not saying that against the law that people wouldn't sneak that in later. I mean, people in this town have kind of actually tried to do the same thing against it. But typically from scratch on a brand new building, I mean, it is definitely good to put it in there. But it'd be surprising to me for somebody to design a place for that. Just because imagine, trying to go 3 flights of steps to get to your place on 2 commercial spaces, but then height ceilings and that on commercial spaces tend to be taller. You don't want to put an 8-foot ceiling in there and make all that work. I just don't know if that would ever pop up if somebody would want to do a design like that. That would be efficient. And in a way that they would actually make money off of
It is, it's a rare situation. I've only seen commercial, residential.
right.
Yeah,
So,
And then the only thing is that it's more residential, but.
Which they can't do, so it's not
That
their problem.
doesn't
yeah,
matter.
it wouldn't matter because that whole language be taken out. It would just be defined. It has to have a commercial space that is defined by ground level.
So you solve that problem without having to add anything.
Yeah, and then the above floors have the ability to be residential,
Yeah.
which is what we don't have right now. Okay. All right. Ready to move on to the second one?
Sure.
Second discussion, okay. This one is coming back to, I'm trying to give backstory. We are afraid of the bait and switch. You get promised, I will do a development, and it gets built that way,
Yep.
it gets sold into someone else, and then they immediately turn it to market rates.
Right. And that's what happened at Big Pond.
Exactly, it's what happened to Big Warren Apartments, it's what happens to everything, and
We've
so.
lost so many people
Yeah.
because of that.
I know, it comes with the disguise and they will use all the terminologies, affordable housing, attainable, they'll use all these words, but yet they will redefine it.
Right.
And instead of using it as real government AMI numbers of
Mhm.
showing what the real affordable housing should be at a percentage of, what they make versus what they're spending on income, spending on housing, like 20% or 30%. But anyway, so that's one of the reasons why we're looking at it is because do we make all developments, new developments, do a percentage of affordable housing?
That would be awesome.
That would
How do
be
you
great.
resist that?
I know, well, we put it in code.
Okay.
And do we make exclusions of like anything less than these numbers or units? So like say they say, we're only gonna do 4 units. Do we say, well, they don't have to meet our code's requirement of a percentage of affordable housing?
I think the 1 out of the 4 should have to be, I think you should maintain that. If you're gonna do it, you should maintain it across the board. And it's not that putting it in the code, but how do you enforce that?
Right.
Do we have a
People
code
see that to
enforcement?
make sure.
Yes, we
So-
do.
So we're gonna hire
I would think
somebody
we do.
November 1st.
Yeah.
We have somebody.
no, I just knew we didn't have one right now, is why I'm asking.
Right. We
And
will.
we're gonna call
That's
it
fine.
a
I know.
community service officer
Okay.
Yeah.
to make it so, code
That's
enforcement.
In Sacramento Springs, you want to get in the truck and put it on the truck, code enforcement real big.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, it's scary. It's like he's almost like a police officer.
I just heard so much about low income housing and we don't have any. And as I say, the apartments that were put on Rutherford's property were low income housing and they started out at 1,500 a month. They went up from there. And I have a real problem with low income that can't be enforced is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that was the simplest thing is Steve, when he listed that, he had 50 calls in 24 hours. And the price went from 700 to.
But if you're calling it, you've got to be held
See,
liable.
there's got to be some,
100%.
there's, okay, like the AMI, okay, if we follow the AMI of Gregory County, we're looking at, 30%, the person makes 24,650. Right now, our average people here make anywhere from $12 to $14 an hour, which is $27,000 a year.
Hmm.
That's what's on Sixth Street. The railroad, however, we're different. We do $18 and up. So our people get paid more, but they have no place to live. They're coming from.
It's not enough.
Right.
It's not.
Okay, so if we're gonna do this, we really have to look at Clear Creek County or whatever code that is. I know there's a whole table of it. That you can go 30, 50, 60, 80% AMI. And then it's according to 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, 4, because we have to do this in summertime. And we had to put it in our code. Because if we didn't enforce it, it would have never happened.
Right.
So that's the only way I know how we can do it is to keep it, because like she said,
The mill site
from
has
7
2-bedroom condos with 7 people living in them to pay the
Oh,
rent.
yeah.
That's BS.
that's ridiculous. It's right diagonally across from me too. Yeah. There's gotta be 7.
In a
people
900 square foot house, 2-bedroom, 7 people, not related, not
Yeah.
married, just kids.
We're all-
Kids from the ski area with a crash pad is all that is, and that's wrong. We need to be able, these kids need to be able to afford to live.
Yeah.
I have,
They
I have,
can't. We're
real- I have real strong opinions, I'm sorry.
Okay, so what's really happening to this town is that we're forcing our young generation to, and I'm sorry, whoever's listening to this and may disagree, we're gonna agree to disagree, that we are forcing our young people to move out of our area that is so quaint and people like to come to because it's that small town mentality. We're pushing them away because they're paying $2,400 for a 2-bedroom house, for a 2-bedroom apartment in Millside, and not Millside, Bighorn Crossing. My son had to leave. An employee of mine. He's gone because he couldn't afford it. They raised it from 16 to 2,400. He couldn't stay there. Making $18 an hour, he still couldn't do it.
But if you're gonna talk about that, the local businesses do nothing to let these kids afford to even eat here or anything else,
That's
buy
true.
gas.
That's true.
I mean, gas is 50 cents to $1 a gallon more than it is in.
So
Denver.
much.
I ask another question, just as we're discussing it. If I am a builder
Right,
and I come and say, I only want to build a townhouse of 4 units. And financially, it doesn't work. You know, like I know what I need to get but for selling these or renting them. And to be able to have 1 out of the 4 into a low income, I can't do it. Financially, it doesn't break even.
But how do you justify the person, the 4th person, the other people, why that one's cheaper too? That's an issue too.
Yeah, so I'm throwing out something of some, because that's happened already, of someone looking at, trying to come up with an affordable model. But to be deed restricted that it has to be this way, it's a break even, you're like, I can't do it, it doesn't add up, I can't do it. So that's why I'm like, do we bring in a threshold of saying if it's greater than this, it has to be restricted of a percentage? Or are you guys willing to lose to, because what will happen is the unintended consequence will be, it pushes development away. Because they can't come because they can't financially do it in smaller units.
I'm not
Big
trying
units,
to,
you can make it work.
I'm not trying to push development away. I'm saying don't call it affordable housing unless it's gonna be. That's my.
yeah,
But
And I agree, that's why we're doing this, so that we can make it affordable, so yes, well, that's included in this.
yeah, but let me say this though, because this is the real thing, right? Hey, businesses operate on the idea that they want to make a lot of money.
Yeah,
Okay, so their profit margin is here, they really want it to be here. They're coming and go, oh, I just can't make that work because it's not here.
yeah,
So when you look at that mindset, you just give up the land that's left and go, okay, because what somebody will do is they could buy all this land and they go, oh, well, they're gonna make us make a certain amount of those affordable. So what will they do? They're just coming and buy this piece and then this piece and this piece. And then it doesn't solve the problems. So the real question is, do you want to solve that problem? Who cares if you turn away more crazy expensive places that doesn't benefit us? Because the end result is if we can't make this town a place for people to live with families with kids, then there would be no schools, then it'd be a tourist town and there'd be no businesses. It'd be a bunch of tourists coming going, Why isn't any restaurants open? Because nobody can work that.
No, but that's an extra moment, and I just want to hammer that. What we're saying is our new development, we want to be affordable. We don't need any more $1 million homes.
No,
We've got plenty of choices.
No.
We don't have many choices for affordable. So if we say we want all new development I think it's an extra.
There's incentives, there is incentives out there, and Ken, before he moved on. And other people have mentioned it too, there's incentives for people to do affordable housing, but it's specific groups that operate off of that. It's like taking a non-for-profit business versus a profitable business. Not-for-profit businesses just choose to do the greater good.
Yeah.
You know, versus
For-profit
for-profit. So, you know, it'd be more an issue of how much land is the town own? Can you get the right people to build it to make it affordable? That's possible. Or do you let just more bigger companies come in that is only 100% for profit that will use, we're gonna do affordable housing that never intend to, that will make the most that they possibly can. You know, I'm 100% for affordable housing. I think it's possible to get this done. And if it drives people away, then do we need it anyway? I make sure you get the tax base, but do we really need more stuff that's just outrageous?
the commercial you need, the $1 million houses, no.
Well, no, 100%. Sorry, we kind of slid towards the.
Or 2.5 or whatever.
Do like affordable housing programs have grants where?
Yes.
Okay, so it's very-
The Humanity would be the first place.
Yeah.
There's
Habitat's the director there. You go to Habitat, you put your whatever you want. You probably already know this. They'll come out, they'll survey, they'll do everything and tell you what it's going to be, basically, and what they can do for you. And they've done it all over. Buena Vista is, because I was in Silverthorne at the Habitat. We did so many affordable houses and you see how Buena Vista is. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That is the most cutest little town.
It's good, more or
I wish we had a town like other.
They're building an empire right now.
And it's beautiful. It's down, they got an in on that. And that place is just thriving and they're making affordable homes, $200,000. Where could you get a home for 200,000 to 250? You
All right,
can't,
well, can we go through this then? Because I think we're all on the same page, it sounds like to me.
yes.
And let's, Ed, are you thinking something different?
I'm asking, who's paying that?
Habitat for Humanity, it's a 501c.
Along,
So it's all donation.
It's not donation, it's rich people that have money that don't know what to do with it.
oh, yeah,
So they donate, people donate their time to build.
That's exactly what
People
it is.
so the housing unit. Rent it or sell it?
Both. You can sell them, you can rent them. We have both. Habitat for Humanity and Silverthorne had like the Dillon, what were they called? Dillon East and Dillon West Village. Okay, off there off of, okay, Highway 9. They had both rental and they had also where you can buy the condos. It's up to either or what you wanted to do. And you could do the same thing here if Habitat can come in and do it for us.
Well,
We can rent it or they
We
can
are
buy it.
talking to them, by the way,
Okay,
for the mill site, for those 3 properties in town.
yeah.
You know, we're talking to them about it.
Well,
It's
also,
on pause right now, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
but typically too, also, usually it's put into place so that like if you buy one and it's affordable, you can only sell it for a certain percentage.
3%,
What is that?
3%.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely you can't make.
Deed restricted,
Deed restricted.
which means
Yeah.
that if you bought it for 100,000, it's only 3% more of what you paid for it.
Well, I saw that because we were up there through maybe 5 years ago or more. In Summit County, and we saw a lot of places. And they talked about that,
Yeah,
okay? What I'm concerned is if we do anything for development, as long we have little bit more, no, less money that we spend, it's better,
okay.
not the town. We don't have any money,
Yeah, we're not talking about the town doing it.
that's what I'm saying.
This will be for private developers who want to build and do a development in Georgetown. We're saying we're gonna put a restriction on them that if they're gonna build, they have to put a percentage dedicated for affordable housing. That would be defined by AMI.
Yeah.
So a government number showing that, so like the numbers you mentioned earlier, it would have to be
Right.
defined. So that's right. Let me go through this.
Well, one more thing because Stan, you had mentioned, if like, say if you have 4 units and people find out one's cheaper, but that also kind of falls under the guideline too. If one becomes cheaper, then typically it's based off of what you make, which kind of falls under like programs get back in St. Louis, like Section 8 stuff. So if you're renting a place, you need to get mad because your neighbor was paying less because it was under a government program. I mean, more reality, you felt bad that they didn't make enough money to live there, and that's based off of kids and stuff.
Well, maybe
So
they're smaller units too.
usually, yeah, they're a little bit smaller.
The county have different programs for people that
Sure.
can't afford their homes, don't they?
Well, I was just basing a
Right.
general, I don't know. if
County
someone-
will come to their aid.
Yeah. Okay, so I asked Gary to do some work. He also oversees many municipalities because he's an attorney. So he's at Fairplay and Wheat Ridge and Crested Butte. So anyways, he pulled these documents that they just worked on because they asked the same thing. They want to deed restrict and mandate a percentage of all developments to be affordable housing. And so he gave 2 examples of Crested Butte and Mount Crested Butte. So the town of Mount Crested Butte basically says 15% of all new single family, they're even more restrictive. I'm talking about multifamily, not necessarily single family, unless you guys want to change that. But I'm looking right now of apartments, condos,
Okay,
multifamily.
Right.
But Mount Crested Butte said in their code, 15% of all new single family duplex multifamily developments to be deed restricted community housing. So they mandated that 15% of all developments had to be that. Town of Crested Butte said 60% of new units required to qualify as locals housing, 21% to be affordable. So 60% had to be foreign local. You have to live here. You can't, this is not a second home for people. So you have to prove that you are living in the county in order to even buy that house. And then on top of that, 21% of that has to be affordable.
Fixes the
That's
problem.
good.
Yeah.
It's so expensive. for the rest of you. Nobody.
Yeah. So it really does, it goes after the whole short-term rental. We do have a cap on our short-term rental, yeah.
right.
And second homes and all that.
But second home puts the cap on second homes.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think it's.
That's awesome.
Okay, so now key elements of these programs include. These are the key elements of it.
Okay,
Description of the size of project to which the requirement applies, and if there should be exceptions. For example, that developments of less than 4 units are not included. That was one of the things I mentioned earlier. Do we say, are we going to cap it? Like some of theirs also caps it too. If you're doing a small development, say such as Dwayne, you do very small projects. And if you're going to do 2 homes, well, they're basically saying one of yours has to be affordable.
Heck, yeah, definitely.
So are we going to cap it, or are we saying we want, including Marvin and all his other homes, they're going to have to be now a percentage of affordable housing?
can we do
Which I
that?
100% agree, he can do that.
Do that? That
No,
would
but that's right.
Yes.
But you're kind of asking if the developer is developing 4, but we're talking even if he develops 2, one of those should be, and I agree with that.
Well, 100%, and here's why, because I discussed this with Kent way back. For myself as a small builder, all I need is the one house for what you can make off of that at the going rate here. I could almost build the next house for free versus what it was in Missouri. So it's easily doable. Anybody that says it's not, it is either that's all perspective. That goes back to the same thing. How much money is necessary to make? And I say, well, I'm just a carpenter. I'm just a carpenter learning how to build houses. To try to make what doctors and lawyers are making without that kind of education.
Right.
And that's the issue of where we're at. I had argued with the kid that I work with. I'm like, he goes, well, it's all a problem. Houses are too expensive. I'm like, what did you pay for your house? Did you pay this much? More than what, say, the average rate could be, or did you pay this much? You paid this much. I'm not being mean, but you helped create that problem. Right. I'm not much better. I sold a house for a lot more than what I could have. But I tried to keep it down so that it didn't go with the person for the second home.
Right.
So, sorry, with that being said, even if it's 2-for-1, it's easily doable from any builder that, otherwise, if it was typical, then those people wouldn't be in business anyway.
Okay.
They couldn't live off of what they do.
So I don't want to have to go back and repeat myself. So I'm gonna just look at number one and I want to hear from you guys.
Okay.
Do you want a ceiling or do you not want a ceiling?
What do you mean
I
by
think we
ceiling,
should
the
have
number of
ceiling.
units?
I got 100%.
I think we should have a ceiling.
Meaning, if somebody is below the ceiling, that they're only gonna build a minimum of 4 units, they don't apply.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh.
So if it's above, then if it's above 4 units, do you want to have a threshold of saying this new ordinance will apply to those who exceed 12 units? Or are we saying, no, we want to remove the threshold?
I say do a percentage on all of it. You could change
Well, we'll
percentage.
go through the percentage in just a minute.
Perfect.
But I just want to look at the first one. This one's a threshold. If they're below the threshold, do we want to put a threshold? So if somebody says, I only want to build one house, are we saying that now that one house has to be affordable living? Or can it be market rate?
Not with one.
Not one, no.
But like an example, like, okay, if you have a 4-unit apartment building, then
That's
that's
different though.
5 and above have to be affordable.
Well,
Has to have a percentage, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying, or do we want to have a threshold?
Yeah.
So if the builder says, I want to build 4 homes. Are we gonna talk, are we, well, are we talking about single family and multifamily?
No, that's where you confused me
Yeah.
about the back.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to say that.
Yeah.
Well, on
Are we
the,
gonna just address multifamily?
well, on,
Well, don't we have to address both though?
We don't have to, we can do.
Oh, we don't? Oh, okay.
the residential stuff, I think it's both. I think it's a separate item for each, but I think both should be addressed. If you look at commercial, if you look at apartment buildings, if you're building a smaller apartment building, that's what you're forced. Then I think a smaller percentage, but something has to be allowed for that, if that makes sense. But also too, if you take houses, if you're only building, if a person comes in and wants to build one house, are they building to sell or are they building for themselves? I mean,
But if you're building 4 single families,
Like.
I think it should apply.
100%. But also where I was going to go with that is if I build a duplex, now it's 2, should one be affordable? I think that's perspective if you're living in one or not. Right? Or should, that's a real
Sell it
question.
at any time. I mean,
Okay, well, just for the same, I know it may change in how we go through this list. But the first one has to do with threshold. Do we want to put a threshold or not? So,
For multifamily?
yeah, let's just take context multifamily. Since that's the majority of developers that are coming to us right now are wanting to build apartments.
So I'm not understanding, you're talking about a threshold of how, if you're building 12, there shouldn't be any limits, or you're talking if there's only 2 units? I don't know what you're talking about threshold.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
I guess if I'm saying, if I have a developer who says, I only want to build 4-unit condos. Are we saying that this rule should apply to them, or are we saying we're only looking at larger developments who do at least 8 units?
So you're talking lower limit. is
But
what you're
that goes back to earlier. If you want to take control of the situation, I say you do it on all of them. There has to be a percentage of affordable.
Multifamily, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm saying, if we can look at multifamily and not look at single family,
It should be
it's gonna be
on
a little more hard to do single family right. But if the context is developers coming in to build, we don't have a big housing development coming.
No, but there's two in multifamily. The issue.
So we have developers who are doing multifamily,
I think
Right.
multifamily should be under this restriction.
but we don't know all of it, no threshold.
No, and
Except for what about duplex?
well, and that's what I was kind of saying earlier, but here's my idea with the multifamily. If that many developers come in here for multifamily, then it's simply because they see the profit margin that they can make. And you have to ask yourself, do you really want that? Right? If I'm wanting to build houses, I mean, I live here, but if I want to build houses in Highlands Ranch in Denver, I'm doing it down there because I want to make a lot of money. If I live down there and I'm deciding I want to build up here, it's because I see the profit margins. That's what you kind of want to eliminate. And so you create that by going, okay, hey, if you want to do that, you can make your money, but we want affordable housing. So I say it doesn't matter with multifamily, you put a certain percentage there.
Well, you guys agree?
Yeah,
We're saying the same thing, basically.
yeah, same thing.
Just different.
Okay, so no threshold right now.
Right.
Okay,
Not even for a duplex though?
Well, just duplex fall,
Is
which
duplex
Yeah.
multifamily? I think
it does it, which one did it fall under?
Yeah, what is that? Is it-
duplex, I think is multifamily,
Is it?
isn't it?
There's so many duplexes in the towns look like single family.
I don't know, I have to look. We don't have a table. I mean, I'd have to go and look in.
But usually duplexes though isn't, I mean, that's wrong to say because people buy houses just for profit.
Cause that wouldn't be fair, I don't, not that my opinion counts, but.
No, it goes-
Say,
it goes both ways.
duplex of one has to be affordable?
Well, it goes both ways. People that have recently just bought a house and go, oh my gosh, now I gotta live in it for 2 years before I could VRBO it. It kind of falls into the same thing, but if we wouldn't have done that, then everything would have been bought. For
Exactly.
VRBOs. And I feel that we actually saved
That's
them a
what
lot
was
of costs.
happening, that's why they did.
Yeah.
that,
Would you be comfortable if I put on here just as for discussion right now, instead of saying of developments less than 2 units?
Yeah,
So we'll just say if it's a duplex, you are
Yeah,
not
look,
required
yeah.
at this point.
Yeah.
So let's just,
For now, yeah.
for now, until we decide, so I'm just less than 2.
Okay,
yeah, how you could word
If it's
that.
less than 2 units, that you're not excluded.
right.
So it's a duplex is allowable. Okay, so
Okay.
next one, the percentage of the overall project must be devoted to affordable housing. We're fine with that,
Mhm.
a percentage, right? And we'll
Yep.
define that in a minute.
Right,
Well, you could base it off of the units to help,
Yeah,
you know. Yeah, so if you really truly get somebody that actually would stick to the word and actually wants to do affordable, then it still lets them break even, because I get that too on cost, on what they assume it costs and then what the final cost is. I mean, even Steve at the
Yeah.
apartment buildings, you know, right down by me. Once
So-
he realized what he was gonna pay.
so I think for us, this comes from those 2 communities, remember Crested Butte, Mount Crested Butte, and it
Right.
says, creating a definition of affordable housing is in the context of that jurisdiction, commonly expressed as an annual median income AMI. A common range for this purpose is between 80% and 120 of AMI. So you have to fall within that. So you have to kind of prove financially,
that's good.
so then it's not bumped up.
No, they're
Basically, so
making
it-
it-
But you guys better,
They're making it affordable.
Yeah.
They come in.
so that rent,
yeah, you guys better understand the wording on that.
yeah,
I get what you're saying.
yes.
Wait, so what was the second one? What was the percentage?
It's basically a common range for this purpose is between 80% and 120% of AMI, the average median income. So it has to fall between that.
Mhm.
So you're agreeing, yes, but I'm sorry, I missed the second bullet point. Did you set the?
Yeah, so we're just saying, so they're saying in this one, in order to call your development an affordable, it has to meet this definition.
Yeah, right.
Right,
So, okay. Next one, a requirement that the affordable housing units be deed restricted to buyers in the affordable category such that they cannot be sold as market rate units.
I agree on that.
And we're fine with that too.
Yeah. I
Which
agree.
means, like what you said, it can only exceed 3%.
3%, if you gotta put that in there, then I suggest we put that
Yeah.
percent in there, because that's the ongoing
Okay.
throughout all the counties right now,
Right,
so,
and I think that's wonderful.
yeah.
It allows somebody, I mean, Telluride, Snowmass, Aspen, they all have these programs.
Yes,
And their workforce can't live there unless these things were there.
Right.
So you may be able to buy that house for 300,000, but it's only gonna be 300,000 most likely, or a little bit increase. So it allows that next person to come in and still afford it, and you get your money back.
you're still getting something out of it, you're
Correct.
not losing.
The last bullet point, a separate requirement for locals housing, which we mentioned, requiring a percentage of the units to be deed restricted for sale only to persons earning typically 80% of their household income from employment in the county. I mean, you have to prove that you're in the county and that you are affordable. So you have to live here and you have to show proof
You
of
work
income.
in
And you have to
theory.
work in the county.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's big enough.
these units could be usually, are not always required to be affordable per PMI. They're saying that those could be, what we're saying is, so this one just adds the other element, it's AMI, they still have to fall within the parameter, but the next component layered on top of this, you have to prove that you live here.
Right.
That you live and work here. Because what will happen is you'll have somebody in Denver saying, oh, that's my sister's home. But it's really their home, but they're wanting to buy a deal. And it's like, no, you have to work here.
How long do you have to work in the county for? I mean, should that be established?
Yeah, I'm gonna say like, yeah, how do you, I mean, obviously it works out, but
Then you leave your job, you know.
Right.
That would be up to the town.
Isn't it-
Wouldn't
isn't Frisco-
that be a town thing then to? How would you do that? You'd
Well,
send that-
isn't it Frisco that like they have housing for like their city workers? But I was always curious that if they got
It's
fired from the
like-
town, then you guys.
Silverthorne, Breckenridge have housing for their J9s.
Yeah.
Okay, your J9s are the people that come over from all over and they only stay for within a year. And then they move out and then more come in. Then they have their deed restricted areas where, okay, one person that actually does stuff with the train, he lives in Frisco and has a deed restricted area. It's a condo, but he doesn't have to tell them that he still lives there. See what I'm saying? Like.
So he can leave and rent it out.
He can leave it and rent it out. They have no way of knowing that.
That's what
And
you
the same
gotta
thing
do.
with Dillon, with
Yeah.
their East and West Village, they're the same way. And now Silverthorne is starting this whole new hostel thing. I don't even know how that's gonna work, but I just listen because I have friends up there and I'm like, oh, thank God I'm not there no more. Because it's getting ridiculous, because they're losing employees because no one has a place.
Okay, so what are the questions we need to be asking them? How do you prove that you are
How do you
still?
prove it? How do you enforce it?
Yeah, how do you do that? Code enforcement.
Yeah, and with the code enforcement, how much you see it, because we talked about this with even DRC for how long until Bob started going back. It didn't matter what people did, they could go and change whatever, because DRC never went back to make sure they did what they
Right,
were
you do it
supposed
one
to.
time and then you're done. That's
Yeah.
usually what happens. We don't have anybody that goes and checks things periodically.
Well, and I mean, the crazy part about it is you get kickback from people that live in a town, but it's actually best for them. It's what you want it to be.
Sure, I live in the town, I work in the town, I love it. My gas is nothing.
Exactly.
So great, I got a whole bunch of area to look at, yeah, I love
So
it.
I had another question on here. Enforce is what you said.
'Cause I just don't think you can.
Okay, so
Not to that.
the questions I ask is, how do you prove that you are in the county? How do you prove, if someone leaves the county? Because you can get a job, I mean, they may be able to work in Silverthorne and still live in Georgetown.
I did when I first moved
And,
here.
but are they allowed to do that in this program? And they could make more money in Silverthorne or Breckenridge, so it's 30-minute drive.
Well, and that becomes dependent too. If you take a person that has a percentage that's affordable and they make it affordable for that person. Sure, I'd like to see everybody that live here actually work here, but that's not just the way the world works. People get better jobs, they want better jobs. That's the whole idea. Our idea, I think, is to keep more people who are living it permanently, which I think is fine, but to me, that's what I think is acceptable. But I don't know with you guys, you want that affordable stuff to be only for people that work here. Because at the end of the day, can you really enforce that?
See, I don't know how you would, how do you enforce that though?
I wonder how Aspen does it, because I know they have a big affordable housing fee. Maybe we could ask them.
Yeah,
I know they have a huge waiting list, and ask them what their criteria is.
My
Yeah,
husband
right.
commuted to Denver for 30 years. 35 years, whatever it was. I don't see a huge problem with that. If these people are falling into the parameters of, they need affordable housing.
And then live here, I'd like to see them live here. Yeah.
If they're falling between the 80 and 120 AMIs, then why is it our concern?
Where they're working.
Oh, no, totally.
Look at it that way,
Yeah.
like she's, that Ann's saying everything.
Okay, so what if it's an apartment and they get in and it's I guess you have to go by your lease too. If your lease is a year, and for this you have to prove,
Each year you approve that.
correct, and maybe there's a percentage where it's allowed to fluctuate.
Well, in a time frame.
I mean,
You
$80.
don't wanna pick somebody out.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, I'm just saying, so when somebody
Yes.
gets a really good paying job.
Okay, I have
Yes.
a house for $300,000. I'm working in the county. I decide to go work up in Summit, okay, because it's more money, okay, my job's.
That's what you should do. You go, that's what people do.
That's what, we don't want to restrict them.
So you can't restrict that because. And how would you?
But that's
Because
also,
they purchased that house, that's
Right.
their money, their house.
Bought the house.
We haven't, we're a town that cannot say anything at that point,
Correct.
because we have no way of.
Oh, yeah, then they make
implementing
more money,
anything.
and then they don't fall on the perimeter.
And
well, but the whole housing's different. I mean, you get the afford the house, but you get how that, I mean, it's still amazing to me that coming from St. Louis when, selling a house for 100,000, I'm like, wow, I'm rich. And then here it's like, everything starts at 2 or 250 based off of a carpenter's wage. I'm like, this is crazy. So I don't see an issue. If you buy an affordable house and you're the one that gets it, you get it off and make it less. If you make more, but you still want to stay in that house, I don't see an issue with that. The issue is with multifamily, here you have a, somebody that owns the building. And he goes, oh, well, this is affordable. I've given these people a deal, but now they make a lot of money. I don't know how you.
Yeah, that's-
house.
That makes the people at least live in Colorado for a certain amount of time before you can.
That's correct. The way their criteria is in Habitat is you have to meet their standards, number one. You have to show proof. Now, do they go back and show proof? Yes, they go back because they have to repair those houses. If something happens in those houses, they call Habitat. Habitat goes in and takes care of the house. And while they're doing that, they're doing an application again.
Okay.
Everything is done by an application with Habitat, but I don't know with anybody else. I can only give you the Habitat side.
Well, maybe we should say this should be tied to a housing authority.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know we're talking about creating a multi-jurisdictional housing authority for the county. If we're saying that we're asking things to be, you have to prove you're a local, which means in the county.
yeah. it's
Then this should be also part of the enforced, screened.
Which I think that can be done, because. Right, I mean, that's easier to be done because it's less likely to get somebody that makes a lot of money that would use it as a second home. Right, so because you kind of want to filter too what people would try to brutalize or abuse. So if you only make a set amount, but here's the other issue
If
with
you
that.
make a set amount, how could you get a second home?
Well, no, but that is what I'm saying, though,
Yeah.
is because if you're within those parameters, you're not making much money. The chance that you try and use the second home wouldn't happen.
That shouldn't,
And that's what Habitat did, like you say, because I went through one of those things, they have a chart and you have to fit into what you're.
and you have to fill out an application, and in that application, you gotta give them all the background and, your paycheck,
No, but
you gotta give
only-
them all the information.
Yeah.
Because they're just not gonna give it to you because, oh, I feel sorry for you. No,
No, right.
they're such, don't know, because like I said, once you do that with Habitat, they'll take care of you. They're like, you're a family of theirs now.
Yeah.
They're gonna go and fix your roof. They're gonna give you, plumbing, whatever you need. They're gonna go in and help you
Really?
so that, yes.
So they did the repairs.
Yeah, we did it down in Fairplay. We had a couple of houses where the people were older and they couldn't do it. So we had to build ramps and stuff like that. So Habitat does, if you apply, and that's something people don't know, you have to apply for these things for them to come out and help you. Any one of us can probably call Habitat and say, hey, I only make X amount of dollars. Could you come and fix my plumbing in my bathroom because my pipe burst or something? They might be able to do that because they'll ask for an application. And if you fit in the chart,
Yeah, they do it. They do
Right.
it.
right,
So can we go back to the percentage now?
yeah,
What would be a fair percentage? Because I'm looking at what Mount Crested Butte did and even Crested Butte, you got 20%, 10%. What are we looking for an expectation of a development?
Are you looking at the first bullet point?
I'm looking at the second bullet.
yeah, the second one.
The
is-
percentage of the overall project which must be devoted to, so I'm saying, what percentage?
But that's where you go back once again. If I have a smaller fourplex unit, if there's only 4, I've got to do 1, I'm at 25%. that's unfair to the person that does 10 units,
Yeah,
What about,
you know. With that,
what about 50?
60.
yeah,
so maybe we can create a table then of saying, if it's
Wonderful.
4, it would be 1. If it's 8,
that's a better way to do it.
8, it would be, what would be fair for 8 units? How many?
Well, like what, 8 to 15 or something would be a category and then.
So I'm just saying, how many units, if you're building an eightplex? Is it 2 units? Is it 1 unit?
It'd have to be more than one.
I mean, isn't there?
It's already 1 on 4, so 1 on 4, I mean, 2 on 8 is the bare minimum.
I would say 3 to 4 on 8. That brings it to 50%.
I know, that's, I'd say.
Which is unfair to the guys, but you don't want,
3,
well, you want to balance it out,
still
so.
a lot.
That's what I'm saying, I think 2 should be fair.
Yeah, because what you don't want is you don't want people to bend the rules to fit how they design their buildings. You know what I'm saying? And that keeps it,
Because like, even if I said 10,
Yeah.
maybe 8 to 10 units, it's
Okay,
still 2. Because that's just 20%.
that's,
Right.
yeah, that's 20%.
So I'm gonna
So
put
yeah,
8
we
to
gotta keep it
10.
at that.
I mean, how do you just pull a number out of the sky? Like, isn't there some math or like something you, like, as you as a building, you're figuring it out, like.
Well, we're using, I think, 20, correct?
so they kind of is, because if you base it off of the smallest number of 4 units and 1 unit, that's 25%. So you're trying to fit that 20 to 30%.
But I mean, that's just like pulling.
I think 20% is fair.
Yeah, it's not, because if I'm a builder, and it's based off of the land, but it's based off of the land size. If I only get 4 units, then I gotta calculate in my head, taking one of those units and go, okay, I'm gonna make that affordable. But in the same sense, if I live in Denver and I want a place up here, you know, more than likely, those 3 will make me enough money that one's paid for free and clear. That's simple, that's, as a builder, I can easily do that. So if I take 8 and I'm sticking with that same percentage, it's like, oh, now I can use 2 of these for friends and family, and because I know the other 6 are gonna pay for those free and clear.
Okay,
You know.
so let's take an extreme case, like Kurt Suka.
Yeah,
He's wanting to do 50 units.
Okay,
So let's say it's,
so what's 25% of that?
right, 50
Right.
times 25%,
Like
12.5.
Yeah.
So at minimum, we 12.
Yes.
So, and I'm just
I hear
kidding,
what complaining to no end.
20% is our goal,
right.
but, so 50, even 50 units equals 12.5.
Well, and Jen, here's another perspective too, right? When you take different areas of the country, so take St. Louis, building costs are similar to the same because we all follow the same basic building code. Those would already be easily affordable for our, you know, percentage rate on what people make here,
Right.
$15 an hour.
Yeah.
So when you do that and people go, oh, well, I can't make that work, it's because they're not making the insane amount of money that they want to make.
Right.
And I get that, you know, I mean, people want to maximize that, but that's perspective on where you live in this country too. So if you make them take 12 units out of the 50, they're still making the same amount of money off of the other ones. That it easily covers that. We're just giving, you know, they're gonna pay their taxes, they're gonna pay their water bill. This in a sense is part of their cost.
Maybe what we can say is 20%, or you
Right.
round down. So because if it's 50 units, it comes out
It
to
comes to
12.5.
12.5. So you're gonna
We
go
round down to
13,
12.
You're gonna go to 12, so you might as well go to 12.
Yeah, I'm just saying, we'll round down.
Okay.
It's just, we're losing a half, but you don't build a half. on
Yeah,
you.
Well, also, if you take their apartments, if they went for 1,500 to 2,500. Man, at 1,500, they're gonna burn those out for 1,000 and still make a huge profit.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not, I don't think it's gonna stop people from wanting to do it. Yeah, exactly, they're not right.
Well, it secures for us the
Yeah.
opportunity of workforce housing.
Yeah,
And that's what we're trying to say, like, we're gonna force our development to secure our workforce housing. If not, we're gonna lose our businesses.
We
They'll
are.
run.
Like we already have.
Right now, the town is going driving when you
Yeah.
think about it.
It doesn't matter how much marketing we do, we get them up here, nothing's open and no restaurants.
That's all I hear.
It's that full circle. Sorry, it's.
Constant every Tuesday and Wednesday. Where can I go eat?
Idaho Springs.
That's exactly what I said. You know where Minor Street is on Idaho? They have about 10 restaurants that are open 7 days a week.
I think I did it wrong. 50 units times 20% equals 10.
That's actually a balance. It does equal 10. 100 would be 20.
100 would be 20. That's good.
Yes.
Without a calculator. I'll tell you.
Grayson thinks I'm a genius at math.
See that?
He's 9, but he'll figure it out.
It's funny.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I think this is great. I think this is good. I'll give this to Martin
Okay.
and Jerry to kind of work up something of showing, the goal would be 20%. But in a case of less than 4 or less units, it has to be at least 25%.
Okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, because what if it's 3? No, because we said, if it's 3 units, it has to be 1,
Right.
this could be.
because that's 30%.
But then if people decide not to do it, then so be it.
Yeah.
Because that falls under, you don't want a builder to take a certain, go, well, I'm gonna do 3 units on a bunch of separate spots. And that would make sense money wise. But I've watched a lot of people also that are builders do a lot of stuff that didn't make sense. So you don't want people trying to stick it back to us, and you want to ensure that they're forced to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, I'm just trying to create a table so you can take it. 3 to 4 units, it's gonna be 25%.
Yeah, here,
They're 20, at least 25%, but it's gonna be at least 1 unit. 3 to 4 units, it's gonna be 1 unit.
has to be one.
Right.
6
To 8.
to 10
Up
units,
to 10. It'll be 2.
to be
That's true.
2.
Yeah.
Makes it simple.
That makes it easy.
No.
And then, it's kind of like, it's just 20%. And then, even for large development, it's just 20%.
50
So
to 100.
it doesn't matter if we just say 20%. It's
Does that
gonna,
make sense, Ed?
Does that make sense? Yes?
What do you think?
I'm not sure. I'm a little bit.
Confused.
About,
Well, I mean, what do you think with, this is forcing people to do affordable housing. Are you fine with that?
I guess, in a
For multifamily?
if the builders can afford,
They can
Yeah.
afford it.
yeah.
I'm a builder and, yeah, because stuff back in the Midwest, it's still, apartment buildings are still getting built. Building costs are still the same. Labor maybe is a little bit less, but the overall cost is close. If you charge what you charged here, back there, it's just like nobody can afford to live in them. So all it's doing is kicking their profit margin. Think about this, the apartment buildings that they put in, they raise those rents from 1,500 to 2,500. At 1,500, they rent them for that, so that obviously made them money. Imagine what they're making now. But also on the other side of stuff, they could have charged $500 a month and still made a profit off of that. It just would have taken them longer. So basic business with that. If a builder can't make money off of the bottom line, then they shouldn't be in business. What it's opening up is people making an insanely amount of money without having to go, oh, we're just going to make a ton of money. So who cares what it costs?
The rich get richer.
When you build a house,
Yeah.
are you thinking of who's going to tell you how much money you can make?
Here's a better way to put it, Ed. Graduated high school. I didn't take no schooling for building, so a carpenter. 1989, I started out $6.50 an hour, right? Fast forward 30 years. I built a house for $200,000. Okay. I did it on evenings and weekends. Is it right that I sold that house for $510,000? I made $310,000 working evenings and weekends. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, isn't
Yes.
it? To me to go, but okay, is it selfish of me to go, oh, but the market says I can only sell this house for $220,000. For me, I'm a fair person. I'll take that $20,000 for evenings and weekends for 6 months. Because the carpenter's wage is $40,000 a year. That's half for working evenings and weekends. My point being is this, because we've never put a limit on what we can do. Yeah, sure, it's awesome. It gave me that opportunity. I'd have built that same house all day long for anybody for 300,000. Matter of fact, I wish we had enough lots. That's how I would do it. Is-
Yeah, yeah.
But then you look at it and go, wow, that's marginal housing. But it's still not affordable housing
Right,
theoretically.
right.
What does
So-
Popcorn do? What was their percentage? I mean, it'd be probably good to know what other places are doing,
With like,
but they're affordable housing, but.
your
their
first
percentage-
housings were 25%.
Well, what I'm getting at is,
Yeah, I think if we say 20%
So if you say
across the
20,
board,
that's fine. Because
Then-
first, Silver Cliff has a lot of second home owners.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so that's true. I think we have more people that live outside of the town than live in the town. Is that correct?
well, one thing is, here's a better, a better way to put it. We did subdivisions back in St. Louis. And out of those subdivisions, for me, I was always pushing the profit margin down because the people that we were selling to were maxed out on what they could afford. Within, economy crashed in 2009, it took both people to afford the house. 50% of our subdivision, those people foreclosed at. The problem, when you step back, if you take the money that was made off of that, once you're past 100,000 a year, you're paying way more in taxes. Those people are paying more insurance. They're paying more in taxes. So then they can't afford to do anything else. The area that I got involved in that we worked out of, those people were able to keep their houses and actually had some extra money. All my work from 2009 to 2012, finished basements, etc. So yeah, I gave them a little bit of a deal, but it kept me working and kept me busy. So I always say it's that full circle. So yeah, there is a price point. Can I build this building and can I make money off it? Do I want people to tell me what I can't make? Well, welcome to America. But if we don't, then nobody can afford to live here.
Sure.
So the real question is money management, how people choose to manage their money and what is fair to make. And where that price should I do work for you and try to get the max that I can? Maybe I do, but then in a couple of years when I have no work, you're going, oh, you gouged me. So now I'm going to pay you pennies. We have to find that balance, and I did it back in the Midwest, and here, even though I sold my house for more, we ensured that we sold to somebody that at least was going to live here for a short time, and they still live here, and it's been almost 3 years, and so it's what truly is affordable. What are we really trying to do? And I think that's the real question.
I listen to them and I understand what they're doing. Somehow, normal business that you have to do, you make a decision, and with your choice, you sell them up anything that you're building, and you arrive at a price, and yet you want to make that kind of money. Nobody can tell you that you can't sell much.
The market always does, though.
Yeah, it
It's
predicts.
different. It's different.
Is it though? Who creates the market? We create.
We're not talking about market. We're talking about a government agency like our town saying, we'll let you build houses here, but you can only build them like that and pay the full amount or put two in for less than they did up there. And it bothered me. Because independent building people that are being told that they can't make it as much money as they want to. That's wrong.
Well, but also too, then how do you feel when, because and forget about the markets, take it personally. So if everybody in this town keeps choosing to sell their houses for what they can get, which is extraordinary. Then there's only a certain group of people up here that can afford those. Then we have no permanent residents. So we've already, I get what you're saying, but we've already crossed that line of going, okay, you can buy a house here, but you have to live in it for 2 years before you can VRBO it. You know, we've already put those rules in place. So I'm not arguing with you, but we've already done that.
Right.
But if we don't,
No, one thing, not to interrupt.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's different because that's a commercial use in a residential area, and that's a privilege, it's not a right. So yeah, we're telling them, you know.
but if you don't, the problem is like, and I always use this example. If I'm the one person that lives in this county, I can do anything I want. Who cares? You had 5 people, you're spread out enough. So who cares? You really don't need rules. Now I have 500,000 people and you simply lose your freedom. People always argue, well, you know, we should have more freedom, but you can't because people will always abuse it. And it's that same thing there. You know, to me, if you're selling something, how much is that worth to me? But that's also dependent upon the need of it, what's necessary for that area, and how much I make.
Well, here's my situation that I have to look at. I am a capitalist because I believe that we should get as much money as you deserve. So I believe that, but I'm on government. I'm a town administrator, so I'm looking at it from equity and thinking about for the whole town. So if I'm talking to myself 10 years from now, and 10 years from now, we don't do anything, we don't cap anything, we let the market just run.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen, and I know what's gonna happen, we're a small little resort community. What will happen is this place will, it's like, you ever heard the term gentrification? Well, there's a lot of negative things that can come out of gentrification. You have a low income community and all of a sudden people decide to come and buy it, fix it up, and now the rates rise. And the people who are living here can no longer afford it because it's gentrified. It's become a lot more expensive. And those people are kicked out. And so that's what's going to happen in Georgetown. If we think about 10 years from now, what we're saying is, okay, we're already struggling with financial, the ability for people to afford our workforce. Okay. So in 10 years from now, what the trajectory is, our working class people will not be able to live in Clear Creek County alone.
Right.
So they will leave. So what will happen if our workforce leaves to our businesses? Our businesses then will leave because they will not be able to afford the rent. So that's what's going to happen. So in order to stop that, it's the same thing that I had to look to. As an administrator, I have staff here. What if Jen leaves for some reason? She gets a better paying job somewhere else. Okay. And but what you were making, could I find somebody on that salary that she was making? The answer is no, because the market rates here, what she was making, lower than the market rate. So I had to make a decision early on, and I saw this. Oh my gosh, if Jen leaves, we're screwed because I can't replace her. So I'm going to bring her up to the average, what she should be, so that she would love her job and love her boss being here.
Yes.
So I raised it so that she would feel valued and love her job, but also get paid for what she deserves. So that's kind of similar to our city right now, our town. If we don't move accordingly and stop the hemorrhage, we're doomed. And I'm like, 10 years feels like a long time from now, but golly, we're already seeing businesses like the lady that went to Silverthorne. Annalise was saying she's not making the profit.
No, do you know that she did her opening on last Friday? Oh my God. Oh, yes.
Yeah, so this to me, this is a little way to be able to try to control the market so that we are taking a percentage and holding it back for our workforce. Yeah, so it's being responsible, it's being stewards of our town, even though I'm a capitalist. Like, I'm not saying I'm eliminating capitalism, I'm saying we need to be holding back something. If not, this is gonna be a different place.
And if they don't like it, there's nothing forcing them to. do it.
It also too, it takes that. It makes it less easy for people to be more selfish. If you're more than welcome to be a part of this town. And I know you disagree, Ed, but it's, the profit margins are so massive
Right.
across the board of construction right now that the one thing you can't control is cost. I had this discussion with my supplier. He goes, material costs went up 100%. How does that affect you? I'm like, instead of making 200,000 off of a house, I make 175 because the building costs in there on a smaller house or instead of them being 25 to 75, it's pennies. But is it fair me to go, oh, well, I'm going to add this much on and try to use that as an excuse? It's just not, you have to control it. Because if not, think about this, that when I moved here, the amount of stuff I could have bought and sold for the amount of price, but the damage that would have done, even little stuff that already has, I'm just like, man, I wish I would have done this a little bit different. That alone would have changed. And I'm one person. Imagine if you, like Rick said, if you let this go, there's a reason why so many companies are wanting to come up here for multifamily, because all they gotta do is go, oh man, that apartment building there, $2,500 per rent per unit. The profit is too much.
Yeah,
And they don't care if they destroy the town,
right.
plain and simple. And that's what you have to be careful of.
Yeah, so like in Brush where I came from, our affordable house, not affordable, market rate was 1,200. And that was like, that's ridiculous. Everyone's like talking how high that is. And you're like, you come here and it's 2,200. And it's like, it's the same builder. He's
Yes.
coming here, because others are like, oh, I'll come up here and I can,
It's just like all the water. You go to Costco and buy it for 50 cents. You go to a Rockies game, it's $5.
It's the same thing. We're the Rockies game here in town now.
Exactly.
Yes.
People see that profit margin, and that's, and also too, that's the thing too. Those guys don't look long term. I've got a friend that's got a couple rentals, and he's pushing the point, and he asked me, and I said, you're better off to get one person in there for long term that can afford that. It's got to be the easier way. And he disagreed, but he's having a hard time renting a place now. So now the longer it sits, the more he's going to want to get to recoup that money that's up here. When in reality, for what everybody in the business, everybody undercuts the next person so that they can make more. You can't blame material costs for going up because they're like, oh wow, the builders are making this amount of money in profit, so we want it. But then they go up and they go up and they go up, and who's left to take the fall for it?
Yeah.
The average person just wanting a place to live. It's unfortunately you have to step in, and that's look at the crash in 2009. Look at how out of control we let that happen. For simple people going, oh well, we shouldn't be able to tell them what they could do. And they almost crashed the whole country, and who stepped in? The government, which then is us, to turn around and pay more taxes so they could keep making more money.
Can we wind this up? I need to get out of here.
Can I make a motion that we could approve this, that we did?
Yeah, so I just have these
The
things.
potential
Thank you for all of this. I know
amendment.
you have sacrificed your time and I appreciate that. It really helps.
No,
I just,
I'd like to make a motion to accept the changes that we've done on this.
Okay. And take it back to
To recommend
Jerry
the board
to then create an ordinance.
Staff,
Okay.
staff and the board.
Take it back to Jerry to create an ordinance. Okay. And then we'll bring that ordinance.
To the Board of Selectmen,
To the
or
board.
back to us.
I think we'll take it back to you.
Do we have to do a public
We'll
hearing?
have to do a public hearing
Yeah, okay,
to do a first reading, second reading,
Right.
and then once it gets approved by the, we'll go back to, I think it's how it goes.
right?
It's
Yeah.
a planning commission ordinance instead of a board of selectmen.
What's a code change, lane?
So it's got board. and
Yeah.
select-
It's board of
Yeah.
selectmen.
Okay, so then we'll say, well, we have to have an ordinance, so this is not an ordinance.
Oh,
We need to create an ordinance.
Right,
Jerry will
Jerry
create
will
an
create an ordinance and then it
Right.
goes to the board for first reading, and if you guys wanna see it before we take it to the board for first reading.
You feel like we got your thoughts down?
we got him down. I
Okay.
feel.
The first one was easy because it was only,
No, I feel.
I think I can send it out to you guys for the first reading and then, right, if they wanna, you.
So
can
get
make
it before-
comments on it.
To comment before it goes to the. board.
Yeah,
okay,
All right,
we'll do that.
because I have my notes too, Rick.
okay, is there a second?
I'm sure you're better than mine.
All in favor?
right, yeah.
Is all in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve the minutes from September 21st, 2022.
I motion, because I read it all,
I'll second.
while I wasn't here, so I read it all.
This meeting's adjourned.
All right, I'm all for that.
So, okay,
So the one thing we did not want to bring to another discussion, which is the whole maximum lot and building sizes for the short residential zoning code.